Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Plus Three Futures and Commodities Show. We are recording here Friday, August 29th at 4:15, just after the close. Another month is in the books. Can you believe it, Barry?
I mean, I have to believe it. It's hard to believe, yeah.
It's crazy how fast it goes. Anyway, the
Flies.
theme for today's show is that summer trading is officially over after today, and the big boys should be back in town, and volume should pick up next week. And so, what we want to talk about is what's most likely to happen, what should we expect, and what are the important levels to monitor in the various markets to know where probabilities shift. I think it's great that you have the S&P up here as we always do because it's on another cliffhanger, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's pretty close to where we were, well, last Friday, you
Right?
know? That was the big talk. And today we're going to get into a little bit more about, a little bit of trade education, meaning how to use some of the stuff that we talk about. So it's not just thrown out there. And also about not just next week, also kind of next month, right? Looking at the
Hmm.
weeklies and whatnot. Let's get started. Last week we left off this is the S&P cash. We left off the S&P talking about this 64.53 and how if we can hope manage to hang above it, that we could break out. And if not, we could have a lower high and roll over. So that's a basic idea. Now, let's not forget, coming into this August 15th, that time frame, we had a few counts. We had a 90-day cycle expiring up there. When that happened, if you guys have been watching it for a while, the first thing we look at is, okay, there's a big cycle. And we talked about some of the cycles that expired in the longer time frames. I think today you were telling me Jeff Cooper had some bigger cycles going back to what? The 1930s, was it? Or 29?
Yeah, he had it back to 32 and also '09,
Yeah, shout out to
'08,
him because
'09.
he does some pretty good work on the really long-term cycles that we just don't have time to track. So a lot of things are lining up, which, they all kind of showed up on the weekly, and that's where we sort of found it first. To sort of piggyback that, we also had the dailies line up, and that it was right around middle of August. And ever since what happened was, we went down, we went up, and kind of hung in there till this week, where we attempted to kind of make a break, but just couldn't, right? And now we came back to retest pretty much the breakout level. I mean, look at this, 64.60 closing for the cash, and 64.53 is a level we're watching. So it's right there. And so this is sort of, I would say it's sort of a moment of truth because if you just look at it, look how many times we've touched this in, just for dramatic effect, right? So the 14th, 15th, we were there. We were here on the 22nd. We were here on the 26th and back here on the 29th. What do you think about that? I mean, that's why it's an important level. This price, has a lot of business to do here. So let's look at what it means for us next week and far as trading goes. Keeping the whole theme about the 90-day cycle in mind and the larger themes in mind also. If we don't get a lower high, what's the other way you can put in a high is through a false break. I think Palantir did that this week, right, Ben? It was this week. And we reversed. We're
Nvidia
not
did it. Nvidia did it
NVIDIA,
too. Yep.
right? NVIDIA did it. So we're not too, this is a common way of putting. We talk about this a lot. False breaks. I mean, here's one in July. Where we gapped up like it was all great, and then we reversed and straight down. So and false breaks over here in March. So it's not something uncommon. So we want to watch it, especially coming off of a key level, right? If it was in the middle of whatever, then it's another story. But that's not the case. And because of that, we want to look at this, we want to examine this area a little bit closer to go, just to take a look. And what I normally do is look at it through different squares, and we'll do the same today. So there's square 90, if you go like that, square 62, pretty much the same. We see where the 50% of the square comes in. But if you go square 72, you can see, Thursday was 144 days up from the low. The 144 here up from the low. Got pretty close to 216, not quite there, but we did have a time cycle expire there. And that's a big deal. And we did hit 7/8, and 7/8 is sort of for me anyway, it's a termination point, and as good as a full square. It was 7/8 of the third square and 144 degrees. So that's 144 days. That's not bad. That's pretty good, for
144 is a good time count. It's very
yeah,
good.
it's very good. And not to mention that we had the 90 bars coming into the other high, right? So that's there. Now, if you go to the square of 52, which is a weekly square, but 52, but boy, when it starts hitting on the dailies, it's not bad. So here, when I said we were close to 216, you can see we hit 208, some change, maybe 210 degrees, so we're 6 degrees off. Not bad. The point is that we kind of pushed into that and tapped it. And 54 is a part of, it's a fractal of the 144. So it looks good. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And so we have price and time in a couple of different ways. And that 7/8 is always suspicious to me. When I see a 7/8 of a square hit on time, I'm always watching that just to see what happens. All right, so not a whole lot happened, this week. If you guys are following us on X, you saw us talk. We're very bullish all the way up until we hit our target on the S&P, the futures target, which was 65.22, and we're waiting for that to tap. We tapped it, and within a point, and reversed today. So we'll get on with that when we get on. We'll look at the 30-minute chart. But for now, so going on to next week, just looking at the cash, and we'll look at it again through the futures lens. But here, 64.53 still has to be the deal. That's the level we have to watch. Why? Because we keep sort of reverting back to it, not for a long time, but at least a couple of weeks out of the month. And I guess the key thing next week is if we take out Friday's low, since Friday took out Thursday's low, and if we take Monday, we take out Friday low, then I think we can say the false break is in place. And I think this has a good chance of being one because of the move we had today. And if we follow through, and looking at the broader market, right, looking at the metals and everything else, it seems to be setting up for something like that. So watch that 64.53. If we get under that, especially if we take out today's low, I think we could have a few days of weakness. Doesn't mean it could be choppy, but watch the higher lows, lower highs and lower lows, right? Watch the pattern unfolding through here. Yeah, I think that's the key. Obviously, if we can get above 64.53 and hold, and we take out Friday's high, we have a reversal. We had a one-day pullback, and we can just blast on up, right? And if we take out Thursday's high, that would take out that 108 degrees that I showed you guys just a little while back. And that would mean the 144 cycle got blown out. So we're going to go up to probably 180. That's in October. But that's if this thing happens here, all that we can look forward to. But if it doesn't happen, so that's both sides of the story, right? And I think at the moment the downside is a little bit more serious because, well, you can make a lot more money. It's faster money going shorting than going long. So that's the story. So watch that. Let's take a look looking at the September contract. Here's that 90 I was trying to point out on the cash. And we never really took out the quarter. We kept banging up against the 65.09 right there. And yeah, we peaked a little bit, really couldn't make any air, not even just a sort of just a peak is pretty much all it was. And then we took out yesterday's low. If you guys can see, and Ben, I'm sure you can see this easily. We have 1, 2, 3. We have 3 drives to a high eventually, right? Well, it is definitely 3 drives and is to a high. It would have been nice to see this high a little bit higher, but not
That's
always
what I
possible.
was I was thinking we were going to get to that 65.50, 65.60 area
And
today.
yeah, and sort of line up like that.
Right, the three
Come up
drives
here,
line
right?
up. Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
well, that's the ideal, right?
And
But
still might, who knows, right?
well, yeah, and technically we do have a higher high. So hey,
Yep,
it's not visually geometry wise, it's not quite pleasing, but number wise,
it's
we have
there.
it in play. Yeah, it's there.
Hmm.
So, a lot of this stuff that we talk about on the charts is it's stuff to notice because they all kind of add up, and when it comes your turn to sort of go through your work, you can remember, you can kind of put these together and go, yeah, there's the three drives. What does that mean? And, and move along with that, right? All right. So, all right, we got three drives, 5909, really didn't make air. So we're kind of stalled. And I guess, far as the September contract goes, 6509 is really the level to watch because if we can't really get above that, you can see like I don't have a whole lot of 6450s here, but fine, that's still, 50 points away. Um, Next level is 6328 down here. And I don't have a whole lot basis the daily in here other than the 6450. So this makes it a little bit easier because 6509 is very clear, right? It's not iffy. But obviously, if we take out Friday's high, the story reverses. But if we take out Friday's low, then we really have to look out for weaker conditions coming up. And we have time cycles to back it up. We have Jeff Cooper's the bigger cycles, right, that he posted on X. They're also lining up. And we have our weekly. So there are, it's a time to notice. Does it mean we all go short? No. Can we break out to the upside still? Well, we had the chance. Let's say that. Last week we talked about the possibility of breaking out. And you can see clearly we tried and failed. So the point here, second point, I guess, in this whole thing is the failure to break out. What does that mean? Right? So one is breaking out. If the cycle's not really kicking and we can't get a lower high, I think last week I talked about there's only two other outcomes we can have. Either we break out or we do a false break once a lower high scenario is out. So it looks like a number of markets did false breaks. So we have to go with that. Yeah. And if it kicks in, it could lead into a bigger move because of the weekly, which we're going to get into in a second. We talk about a lot of this stuff. I was telling Ben today earlier that usually we're like too far ahead of the curve for people to keep up, meaning to remember, like Bitcoin high we talked about before the high, right? And everybody's like, oh, Bitcoin has a high now, but we talked about it like a month before the high came in. And the same thing with a lot of the other markets. So once these things come in, we want to, like, we're talking about what could happen way ahead of time. This could, when this starts unfolding in the middle of the month, then you'll remember, right? So make your notes on the weekends and just keep them for the whole month or at least 4 weeks out because I feel like we're about 4 weeks out. Some of the things that we talk about. Ben, don't you think? This seems like that's the feeling I'm getting from
Because
remembering.
what we're trying to do, and people need to understand is we're trying to find these key levels based on the geometry where important decisions are made. It works out a lot of times that Friday we close on an important level, but then we look, okay, above here's the next important level, below here's the important level, and price is
Hmm.
not there yet. But over the
Right.
next week or two or three, as you said, we
Hmm.
get to those levels, and then it plays out that you have to make these decisions based upon the new sort of balance
Realities, right?
point.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. So that's the kind of the scope. It's not really just is not really the weekly show is really not for tomorrow, right? And it's yes, next week, but also keep in mind like the bigger picture, like this high we've been talking about since the high came in, right? Um, Middle of August. So is the high gone yet? No.
No.
So can we talk about for 2 weeks in a row? Yeah, because we were visiting that same price today, yesterday. So that's the thing. Long as it's hanging around this line, we looked at it in the cash. we ought to be, we have to talk about it. So it's not, so it might sound like to you guys, or I don't know, I'm assuming this, that we're always talking about, oh, there's a high here. No, it's not always. It's still that high is decisively taken out one way or the other, right?
Hmm.
If the high is still there, obviously we have to talk about it. So
I mean,
anyway,
you can go back to February and March of this year and you could see a perfect example of that.
yeah, exactly. That's
Like we
true.
were visiting that same level for months, 2, 3
Yeah.
months.
And we talked about this December in November, starting in November, we were looking at that. And once that came in, we tracked it all the way, all the way to February. So
Yeah,
that's how long sometimes you have to stay with it and not get pulled into story everybody
that's
else is
right.
talking about. Anyway, that's the September contract. Let's see what else we got here. Here's a continuation chart. Again, here, it's a little bit of a different number. 74.73 is the level. Again, I mean, the only reason I'm watching this is we're about 360 degrees up. So it's a level coming off the 22 low. And if we can, hold above and settle, like I said, if we take out Friday's high on Monday, we're going to blast. There's no question. Why? Because we're at the full cycle, right? 360 degrees up. And if we take out Friday's low, well, then we're going to roll over and probably test lower. And we do have a very tight trend line here to watch. It's not like it takes a lot of, it saves a lot of guessing. So if that trend line goes, especially, you really have to watch out. And we got that little mini free drives going up here also. Anyway, that's the story. That's my take. I think it's not that complicated. So let's watch it. Looking at the Dow, we talked about how the Dow was kind of breaking out, while the other ones were kind of stuck at the resistant level. And now you can see we broke out. Now we're starting to form a little bit of a flag. I mean, it looks bullish to me. Um, I continue to say, as long as it's above this 44,920, this is a 50% level. The market's strong. There's no question. But we did have a time cycle in here, and we have an ABCD up. It's not a measured ABCD, but it's definitely um, two clean parts. So let's see. Maybe the Dow is not going to be the leader this time. I mean, you saw Nasdaq not making any highs, so maybe the Dow is going to be the laggard this time, and the Nasdaq continues to lead, at least on the weakness part, right? Showing us the weakness. So but I'm watching this and very tight trend line here also. If you want to drop a line up that last push right there, very tight. So it's easy to kind of watch this, see what happens next. Now, again, the whole emphasis here is we think it's an important time frame because of the other cycles we talked about, the ones we mentioned, and also the weekly squares that we found. Uh, Nasdaq, not much to say. Ben's going to cover that, but basically to show how the 90 came in, very clean 90, by the way, in the Nasdaq, and a very clean lower high.
So
So
far, that lower high is really sticking out, isn't it?
yeah, it's setting up beautifully.
Hmm.
It's funny thing is, lower high is that's what you want to see after 90 expires. So there it is. And the other markets are putting in three drives or potentially a false break. So everything looks good on the sell side. Why? Because we didn't get a breakout. It was just kind of a false break. And it did hit our target, and we'll get into that next. Let's go to the weeklies. Here's the cash. Let me pull the chart down a little bit. So 64.40 was 360 degrees up from the '09 low. So we're going a long way. And it could be off a couple of points, no problem. So you can see here, just to where we're situated, on that last bar, taking out this week's low doesn't look very bullish. So that's the thing to watch. And at the same rate, if we can hold above 64.40, continue to hold above 64.40 and take out this week's high, okay, fine. At least we got some lift off and we're starting to move in some direction. but I think it's too close, and I showed you guys why. It's too early to sort of celebrate on this. But once this week's bar is settled, I think then we can kind of have a higher confidence on the upside. But for the downside is it's easier because of all the cycles, right?
Mm.
That's the point here.
We also did that full 90 from the April low,
Yes.
the
Hmm.
full one full square. Hmm.
Yep. We did that. This other ABCD, I guess this one hit, or that's how we got the of the tariff low. But let me delete that. I think we're time to move on, right? That one's done. All right, let's look at the continuation chart. Now this one, you guys, we started looking at this a while back, and actually we always look at it, but if you guys remember, I put up this zone saying like, hey, this is really the target area. If we can get up here, that's where it's going to slow down. And sure enough, right, we came right up into it. 65.29, 65.29, 65.30 is 270 degrees up. And well, there we are, stalled out. And I'm just, you don't have to be a heavy hitting technician to kind of look at this move up and imagine, can we do another full square up, right? So, which just put us at 72,070 Can we do that? Well, we could certainly do it, but probability, the level of probability goes down a little bit. So this is two and a half squares up, and this is very steep. It's steeper than the move we had from 2020 low going up into 22, and we did this in very, very short time. So time wise, we got to watch it. We could have a little bit of something happening. And I say this also, if you look at the 2020 low, the first move up, we went up 90 degrees, and in 22 weeks, 22 to 23 weeks, and then we had a correction, right? And that came about the 50% level. So if we were to do something similar, 50% corrections are, I would say, is normal, and obviously there's a nice level here already in place, 61, 66. Just looking at long term, right? So if we break these and get under these, that's when trouble starts. But for now, I think coming down to here and correcting this seems like a very normal thing to do. Just like this is really normal. Let's look at the 30-minute. So 30-minute for this week, I guess our focus
Have
was
been
what?
the levels have been so good on this 30-minute.
Yeah, levels have been very useful. 64.32 was the level we were watching. And well, we ran up to 64.99, had some trouble at 64.77, came back to test the 64.32, coming out of that was a low. And from there, it was really stair stepping, testing, a little bit of flushing people out. And eventually we got to very close to 65.22. Actually, it went up a little bit, right? 65.22. We definitely met the target. And then, just promptly sold off and a little bit faster after the market opened. And sure enough, we found support at 64.56 that we've had on the board, for a long time. And you can see how it's always been useful, even in the back, going back to the middle of the month. Basically stuck there between 56 and 77 for the rest of the day. Going into next week, well, we talked about the daily levels for the 30-minute. But obviously, we want to watch at 64.56 and 477. I mean, that is the block we have to watch. If we can break out of the above the zone and come back and retest above 64.77, above 64.56 at the worst, we can still go up and try for 65.22. If we fail below that and start getting stuck under these levels, then obviously things are going to get weak. And I think, big weakness is below at 64.32. This is the level to watch. Yeah, that's it. If you guys don't follow us on X, we're there, both posting stuff during the day. And Ben posts a hell of a lot more than I do. I just post the S&P. And I might start doing the doing posting Bitcoin, but then post all the commodities, everything. So, and the link are in the description. You guys want to follow us. And if you like our work, please remember to like, subscribe, and maybe share. And also put the alerts because, we're kind of doing everything in-house. The posts aren't going on a regular cycle. Sometimes it's Saturday usually, but it's not always on time. So if you have the alerts, it'll let you know when the posts are up. All right. Enough of that. Let's move on to bonds.
Action continues.
Yes. Yeah. I was gonna you reminded me to do some work on bonds. And what I did was I looked at crude again, but uh bonds basically, I mean, we're still not a whole lot happening here, right? This is still sideways. We're getting tighter and tighter. So, not a whole lot to really to even talk about because there's really nothing setting up to trade. It's kind of like you looking at the commodities, right? You like to
Yep.
talk about things when there's something
When they're
tradable.
moving, yeah.
Yeah, when they're moving or something tradable is showing up on the charts. But here we have this coiling action, which is, for bonds, when this thing starts coiling, some kind of a breakout pending, and bonds breaking out to any direction is going to be big news for everybody. So we have that coming up, guys. And so, and you see where we have our targets, and you see where we have our resistance. I think that's enough said. Key thing is the 64 and a half, 64, 14 to 18. You want to watch on the upside. Till we take that out, we're kind of in limbo mode, range bound. Uh, yeah, that's what I have for bonds. Let's take a look weekly. 114 is the key level to watch on the weekly, and you can see what could happen if we take this 14 out. It's really, really obvious. So watch the 114 to the downside. And if we hold this in reverse, we take out, this week's high, then obviously we might take another shot at that 45-degree line we just saw on the daily. This one, 116 and a half level. Let's move on to crude. Crude, I did look at this, Ben, a little bit closer, and I'm convinced these are higher lows. We held 61.61, 64.75. We made that move up, right? We came down to test it. I mean,
Hmm.
if you guys are following us, I haven't changed these lines forever because they just work. And plus, price has been hanging around the same area forever, so not a whole lot to do. But anyway, the 61.61 we tested, went back up to 64.75. So we're just holding here, and my thinking is, we are starting to make higher lows. So if we manage to hold 61, and meaning having higher lows, and then we break 64.75 to the upside. Well, I think there's more upside go then. We're talking at least $1, at least $10. And if we get up, depending on what cycle we end up with there, we can even go higher. I know it's ridiculous to say that crazy thing, but you have to say crazy things before they happen, right? Otherwise,
I- I'll tell you, Barry, it's really amazing that you have that conviction because today when you and I were talking, we were looking at some other commodities and they were all signaling some sort of event is coming.
mhm.
And money looks like it was moving to anticipate it. So maybe it is an event that's going to be able to give us that spike in crude that you're seeing from the technicals.
We could, yes. I mean, all this entire time we've had a potential event on the horizon, right? And we've been able to manage to skip through all of that. But whatever it is, it just looks like the cycles are pointing up. And as long as we can hold this 61.61, and if you can get above 64 and three quarters, I think that opens up the way, and that would unleash, sort of unload the cycles, meaning it'll be able to follow through. Otherwise, obviously not, and it'll just hang around here. But just keep in mind, if just watch crude for the next couple of weeks and see what happens, because September is starting out looking pretty special for everybody. beat the commodity, beat the crude metals, uh, bonds. Everything looks like everything's going to move. You talk about the big boys coming back. They're coming back with I think they're all well rested. so I think the activity level is going to be huge, big volatility.
No question.
Yeah, so we got to be ready for that. And crude might just join that. So we have to be definitely have to be on top of that. So that's so the weekly. You can see how we're really tightening up again. We got a little triangle going, and so these are the higher lows I'm talking about. It wouldn't take much. Obviously, getting above the 60 would be good. That's that 66.45, 66.50. Let me see. Yeah, but the daily would obviously give us the initial signal, right? So focus on that, watch it, and write these down so you guys remember. Let's move on to gold. Now here's a market that
Woke up.
woke up. That's right.
It was down this morning and then ended up fairly. Where did we end up? Up about 1.25%.
Yeah, yeah, very big. Now gold, we've been talking about for as long as we've been talking about gold. We've been bullish and with good reason. When we hit this 34.30 level, we talked about that being resistance, that gold's probably going to take a little breather. And it did, it did. But while it was taking a breather, we were watching the pattern, and it looked very bullish. We saw the triangle, we saw the coiling, and we talked about potentially um, breaking to the upside. And we talked about how 338 is the level to watch if we can hold above that. So this is a great example of holding above that right here. What happened in August 19th, 20th, that area. So we came down, reversed, well above that, made plenty of air above the 33.38, which we didn't do before, right? Earlier over here, sure, it was after 50%, but then kept going higher, higher. And it kind of this is classic, right? Try to fake everybody out, do a potential false break here and pull back. But you can see how the buyers came in way before 33.38 and just continued relentless push, right? Back up.
Absolutely.
And well, now this 34.30 is unbelievable support. And the next target really, it becomes like 3,600, 3,607, 3,608. I like that number.
Hmm.
There you go. And we talked about how healthy this is for gold to do that, have this really nice, tight, very tight correction, looking very bullish. And now we're back on the move again. I don't know. There isn't a whole lot to add to that, right, Ben? I can't think of anything more to say.
No, just look at,
Mainly because,
watch
go
the
ahead.
levels. If it holds the levels on the pullback, buy it, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. Trade the long side. Yep.
Hmm.
That's it. So weekly, well, we're back at the weekly highs. We haven't quite taken it out, but you can see how the move is going. And once the weekly settles above this 35.03, big move for gold. Continue to watch it. We're looking at the long side. Let's take a quick look at silver. Pretty much the same story. We finally broke 40, and we were pretty impressed with the $40 silver. And I thought that would be a little bit of a longer target, right? Um, Mainly because we're up 360 from the 22 low, and the fact that we were able to take it out this week, I think this is a big deal. This is where I think something's up. We were talking about that earlier.
I mean, look, it
Like
just took
something ain't
off
right.
today. Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah. I said it just took off. The gold and silver this morning were both down when I looked at them, about a
Hmm.
0.5%. And then I turned around and looked again, and they're both up. And then they just started driving, where boom, boom, boom,
Right,
money just
right.
kept hitting the offers.
Now, gold and silver money doesn't just keep hitting for no reason. So really watch. I think this is the sort of a potentially, things to come in September. So let's watch this. So anyway, 40 is support. So if we can hold above 40, we're looking at, well, 42, 42 and a quarter. And basically after that, $45 silver, which has a nice ring to it. Anyway, before we don't want to get too far ahead. So let's manage the 40. I think, yeah, as long as we're holding above 40, I think we're good. But one of the things that when I say that, long as we're above this or above that, which means above those levels, you can take signals or trades in that direction, depending on your system, right? So
And
whatever your
30,
system. Hmm.
35.50 is a perfect example of that, right? We got above it and then stayed on top of it.
Exactly. And no matter what system you're using, if it produced any kind of buy signals, you were fine. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It would have worked.
Hmm. Hmm.
So other than counter trend systems, but even then it would have worked here. But long as you took profits before 35.50. Anyway, all right. So that's silver. I think we're doing pretty good. Let's move on to. It's amazing, huh? $40, $45 silver. Man, I never thought it would all come so quick and so quietly. You
And
know?
look, this chart's a perfect example. Like we hit the 90 and we said, okay, there's caution. We got to see, can we get above the
Hmm.
90? We pulled
Hmm.
back and started making higher lows and then break
Hmm.
out.
And then break out, yeah. And I think when this happened, we talked about how, hey, it's holding above the middle channel. It's got some air there. It's looking good. And there we go. That's what you get.
But when
Half
we
of that.
hit that high, that first time we hit the 90,
Hmm.
you're talking about a 6, 7 week static correction before we really took off.
Yeah, yeah,
And so
exactly.
we always say, there's multiple things that can happen when you hit one of these cardinal levels, one of these important
Mhm.
levels. And one of them is you just burn time and then you go again. And that's what it looks like silver's doing.
Mhm. And it kills me, no matter what the market, how how the psychology goes. I mean, here we had 2 weeks of good pullback, but let's say 1 week pullback. And after that, we had a reversal bar, inside bar. Then our rule is to go with that. So market opened here, went out and did a flush, came back up and closed higher. I mean, this bar is really sneaky, right? When that happens, you know what I mean? It's basically flushing everybody out if we can come back up and close up the highs.
And then
And
it did it.
next day, pull back a little bit and then boom,
Yep.
breakout
Yep.
big time. So if you're trading this short term, there's a great ways to watch it and getting on the action, right? All right, let's take a look at copper, which is trying its best.
I also woke up a little bit this
Yeah,
weekend.
yeah. And we've been, bullish after that big drop and talked about how, we got to get about the 50% level and then we should be stable. And sure enough, copper also did this little flush before it moved higher. You can see there's the old low, right? You can see how we did a little bit of a flush, reversed and reversed right above the 50% and boom, boom. So now really the next level is 471 is where we're watching for resistance. And as long as we're above 447, so 447, 471 is the bracket. I think copper is good. I have so many things to trade, man. Just can't. How do you keep up? All right. So copper weekly. Also, we talked about how 144 is really important. We held above that, plenty of air above the level. Now we're heading toward 480. We saw 471 where that comes in. Looks okay. We
And
have
talking about a flush, look at that outside reversal week bar.
yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Man, it's just amazing how often this stuff happens.
Yep.
And
Yep.
uh, you don't need AI, you just have to watch what's happening with the price action. Speaking of price action, here's Bitcoin. And
Mail stopped from calling the top in Bitcoin.
what's that?
Has the hate mail stopped after you called the
Yeah.
top in Bitcoin? What a great call. Look at that action after you
Mm,
called the top.
thanks. Yeah, everything everybody went quiet. So, but anyway, yes. So we called it right here in July. We had a correction. I marked off this zone saying, look, this is the place to watch. Anywhere in here, we can stall out. Then we went 1/3 correction. Looks very healthy, 1/3. We had support here. Looks very good. Everybody piled on. And, when we did a false break, that on the 14th, that was a little suspicious and I called it out. when we on that show. And said, look, this looks like it's going down from here, and basically what we did. So, and the interesting thing is, it acted like 50% not even there, right? It just slid right through it. It tried, but it's just, we closed at 107,600. So below that, 107,584 now as we speak. So I guess the next natural place to run would be 105. But this thing's not done. Something's not right. I was looking at the long-term cycles. We can have a rally in here, but if we continue to make lower highs, this is just going to go much lower, and September doesn't look good for Bitcoin at all. So at least going into the first week. So see how that looks. Mainly because we got to run this square. If we do 45 days, that's going to bring us all the way down to what? Well, almost towards the end of September, right? Just like we ran up here for 45 days. So I'm looking at the 45 counts. So September doesn't look good for the most part if you're going to run this cycle out. And I called that out mainly because of the 180 and the other cycles that lined up. So that's it for Bitcoin. Let's move on to, and I'm going to stop posting. I know I keep talking, but I've been traveling. So soon I can get back home and settle. I'm going to start posting Bitcoin along with the S&P, and then post Bitcoin and commodities and everything else that's ready to move. So you guys check out our X links in the description. All right, going into the dollar, we're still holding. Look like a little bit of a holding pattern. Not super excited. We're consolidating here right above the lows. And if you're following, we've been bullish since this low came in, and because of the square that we had on the weekly. Let's just wait. 97 is the key level to watch. If we can hold about 97 and hopefully above the low, dollar can still crawl out of this and move higher. Now, going along with this theme of squares and what happens when something holds above versus below, and this cycle, and the S&P, last week we talked about how we can break a square, get on top of it. We can really take off, right? We can really move if the cycle gets blown out. And here, it's a similar story. We have a cycle, it's a cycle bottom. And if a cycle bottom gets blown out, it's even worse, meaning the move wise, right? So just like we talked about the S&P, if we break out of a cycle, we have a lot more to go. Here, I should say the same thing. Let it consolidate. It looks good. I think the 144 is really very strong level. But just keep in mind, we might be, 4 months ahead or 4 weeks ahead. But if we blow this cycle out, we take out the low, and the buffer we have is about 95 and a half. I have this marked up, and somehow get under 144 and get stuck in this space. 93.70 wouldn't be too difficult, and that's 5 points from here. So could be a lot of action in the currencies. So watch it closely. But now, that's plan B if the low gets taken out and all that happens. But for now, it looks like we're still in the correcting mode. We have an inside bar, close kind of weak. So I'm thinking the consolidation is still going on. Even if we can hold one of the trend lines, looks like it could correct a little bit more. We have room to go. Yeah.
Imagine what gold and silver will do if the dollar drops 5 points from here.
Well, that's the thing, right?
Holy moly.
Yeah, yeah. And they look just bullish as hell, especially after that little consolidation gold had. And yeah, that's the thing. We want to, if this thing blows out, it's going to be, there'll be so many things to trade, you won't have time in the day.
Major ramifications across lots of markets.
Yes. And we have a marker now, right? We know what to watch. We know the level to watch. We know the pattern that's unfolding. So we'll watch it very closely. And this week, being an inside week, if we take out the low next week, obviously we're going to go a little lower and test lower. So heads up. I think a lot of all these markets, if you're interested in any one of them, just start watching them closer, because now, like Ben said, big boys are back, and I think we're getting a little bit more action here. All right, not much to say about the euro. I just cannot believe it's up in here, but there's probably some reasons that I'm unaware of. Anyway, still making lower highs, no big deal. Little ways to get to the high. To blow the cycle out, we have 180 up here. So I think euro is a little bit more trouble than it looks. And I'll just leave it at that because we're kind of stuck here, like a little bit of an expanding triangle, just flushing everybody out. You don't want to get involved in that. So I'll leave it at that. And the weekly, pretty much the same story, not a whole lot to talk about. You can see the consolidation here. It's just straddling that 50% of the square. So I don't have a whole lot to add to that. We just wait. There'll be plenty of things to trade coming up. All right. Lastly, we'll look at the Hang Seng. And you guys know, ever since the beginning of the year, we've been bullish and it's been performing beautifully. And well, I said, as long as we're above this 24,086, it's in good shape. And the next target is 26,240. And looks like we're heading that way. Of course, here we have that little pre-drive pattern also, a little bit worry of that, but it looks like it corrected. But any pullback here now that we're above the 144, which is here, this 24,086 level. As long as we can correct in here, it's just very strong. So it's in good position. And that's it for me. I guess. Well, got below
Up a little bit
298.
today. Woke up a little bit this week.
Woke up a little, and maybe this is his gentle way of doing a flush.
Hmm.
We got below 298 and starting to move up. So we'll see how it goes up and corrects. Um, I don't have a lot to say about this for now. So, but if we can hold 298 on any kind of a corrections, uh, Natty's ready to go. Anything you want to say about that? You want to add something?
I'm gonna throw it up on my segment. I'm gonna put Nat Gas up just to
Oh,
show
good.
people. I think we're at we did 90 down on a 4 hour ABCD on a daily, so we may be ready to make some noise there.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to see that on
Hmm.
the long-term cycles. All right, that's it for me. Let me put it back to you. We'll go.
Really good coverage. As we said in the beginning of summer, it's not going to
Thanks.
be a boring summer, man. A lot of stuff was going on.
No, summer wasn't boring, and let me tell you, fall, I don't see a boring time coming up for a
No,
while.
no.
So, and this is why we keep saying rest up for the weekend.
Yeah,
It's no joke. All right, let me put it back to you. Hey, you got one person sharing, right? Still.
yeah. Let me make sure.
Well, so this is the lower high, and we have how timely we have a reversal bar
Hmm.
and off to the races. Exciting Friday, going into
Yeah,
a new month.
and you can see now, this level that we spent some time in June and July around, this 22,820 is going to be key when if we come down here.
Hmm.
That if we get stuck under there, it makes this whole sort of thing up here stuck. Anybody who bought up in here is going to be stuck if we get stuck under here. So, we were talking about time counts coming in. You could see where the 90 came in. We were only off by a couple days off the high. We've now, had our first pullback, and now we've tried to rally, and now we reversed today. So if we take out Friday's low, that means we'll have, potentially two down bars, and we're going to start a trend down. So we got to watch closely. And the 22,820 on daily basis is going to be key. It almost looks, Barry, like we're forming a little head and shoulders here.
A mini one. Yep, yep.
Yep, very
Possible.
small, very tight. But for us, the key thing is going to be 22,820. Do we come down, test that? If we can hold here, then we can maybe go sideways, burn off time, and then rally again. But if we come down here and we slice through it, then we have to really start thinking this was a false break high, right? False break with this high here, and now we had the first reaction down, and we're starting to trend down again. So we'll have to watch. Also, the action in some of the individual like tech leaders is not great, and that's usually a sign of, very late bull market activity when those stocks start faltering.
Hmm.
And maybe we'll cover that on next week's show, Barry. We can cover like Palantir and Nvidia and some of the other darlings, Microsoft and those sort of things, and
Yeah,
take a
Mr.
take
Bank.
a quick look at them.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is the daily. Let's look at the weekly next. And the weekly is very interesting.
Hmm.
So 2 weeks ago, we made the high on the 135 from the COVID lows, right? That's the COVID low, 45-degree square set. And we were three squares up and we reversed right away. This week we had an inside bar, but last week we had that reversal bar. So from a weekly basis, we can watch the low and the high here for clues. If we take out the low first, we should be heading down more next week. If we take out the high, we're probably going to go up and retest these highs here. 23,966 on the upside is key. If we stay stuck under here and start, making successively lower lows, we're heading down to 21,000. That's the half square there. Low to high, we did 18 weeks, which is pretty good. It's half of a 36 in that 72, 144 family. And we did low to high 18 weeks. So that's a pretty good cycle. You know, here you can see another one we did low to high was 19 weeks. So it fits in there that this high could be decent. Now we just have to
Yeah.
watch how it unfolds, how the price action looks. Let's look at the monthly. This is the big one that I showed last week. From the '02 lows, we're 180 up, and now we got to have the monthly close be under this bar.
Hmm.
So we have an opportunity this month to print a full bar under here, which would mean, okay, we're stuck under. Now what are we going to do? Are we going to go sideways? Are we going to burn time? Or are we going to start correcting? That's the big question because it looks like we failed here so far. Um, and we did do, Barry, this is a good one, 45 months high to high.
Right.
That's pretty good.
Hmm.
So the monthly is a bit ominous that this could be a very significant high, but we'll find out. It's easy, right? The 24,036 is the key. We got to get monthly bars over that to keep the cycle going, right? To push up to the next level.
Hmm.
And if we don't, it's a correction. Is it a time sideways thing? Could it be bullish like gold, or is it going to actually have a bigger correction like one of these or one of these? And time will tell us.
Yep.
Real quickly, I want to show. I've been posting the 60-minute each day, and this has been really a really good vibration here.
Hmm.
Caught the high, um, caught the low,
Hmm.
and now I put this afternoon. I put in this ABCD to see where that could take us, and it takes us down to you know, 22,700. But if you look, Barry, for the last week or 10 days, we've kind of been stuck in this half square channel,
Yeah.
between 23,466 and 23,655. Little deviation outside here, little deviation here.
Hmm.
And look where support came in today.
Yeah.
So next week on a 60-minute, if you're watching NQs, 23,466 key. If we get stuck under, we're heading down to the next level. But and you can see from a shorter time frame how we made a high, we made a low, we made a lower high. Now the key is, are we going to go down and make a higher low or a lower low? What are we going to do here? And we should know, in the fullness of time here fairly soon. Anything else you want to add on the NQs?
No, we're good. I think you covered it well.
Let's go to our friend Bitcoin and see why we are at a pretty important spot. As Barry did, we called out this false break and we said, listen, if we get stuck under 119, we're heading to 108. Well, here we are. So now we're at the decision spot here, 108,330. If we start getting bars printing under here and get stuck under, then it's sub 100,000. It's 96.6 is next.
Hmm.
If we can hold, and you can see there's good structural support all these places, and that's the 360. If we can sit on top of it, then we can rally again. But so right now, 108,330 is your key number. Let's look at the weekly. Similar story here. We're coming into support. A little here. This one's under 108. This is about 107, 700.
Hmm.
Get stuck under there. Weekly basis, you're talking about 89,000. It will be the next spot you're going to run to. Here we had really good time and price, right? That's 216 by 144 from the November 22 lows. So that was a really good square, and we've gotten very good price action, like two weeks down off of that. So is it likely it's going to stop here? Probably not, but we'll let price, tell us which way it wants to go. Lastly, let's take a look at the monthly. Again, this one's interesting because it sure looked like we were going to settle earlier in the month. We were going to be settling above 111 and be able to, talk about 130,000 Bitcoin targets. But now, we're going to close, depending on how we do over the weekend, we're going to close under this 111, right? And this is definitely going to be a false break. And it's possible we get an outside reversal if it closes below. Let's see, what are we looking at there? Around 105. So we got to watch and see. That could be a pretty ominous sign if that happens for Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And that's it for Bitcoin. Anything you want to add on the monthly?
No, we're good. Let's watch let's watch that low.
Yeah, we really do. We have to watch that and see how the bar ends. In commodity land, we mentioned we a little bit earlier about how today and yesterday money started flowing in. It started flowing into the grains, started flowing into the metals. Natural gas caught a little bit of a bid. So let's look at some of the ones that are starting to look attractive now. So corn was drifting, drifting, drifting. We were watching coming into these lows, and we said, "Look, there's good support down here." And what did it do? It made one last push, little false break here, and then we gapped up. We gapped up,
Hmm.
and we're pushing higher.
Yeah.
So this for corn to me, this looks like a pretty good low.
Hmm.
Uh, we came down into it fairly hard at the end, got the false break, and now we've had this move up. And again, the you know the move today, like it looked like we were heading down, on Thursday, another day, and then we get this outside reversal bar on Thursday, and then this big up bar closing at the high today. For some
Hmm.
reason, people wanted to own this corn the last 2 days, and right now we're pushing the next resistance. Structural resistance is going to be here, which is around 428. Full square resistance 446, or half square. I'm sorry, 446. So we'll see if we can push up there. But this is the kind of action you like to see coming out. We did do in time 120 high to low, and then we got the false break low here. But to the actual low that was on the square, we did 120 in time. So that's a nice 120 by 60 roughly. It's a decent square.
Hmm.
Let's take a look at the weekly. Weekly, we did this ABCD and then pushed hard. Last 2 weeks, look at that. Close at the high, and above the full square at 412. So next week, I'm going to watch on the weekly and see if the low can stay above this, 410, 412 area. We could get a weekly bar that clears the full square, and that opens up, 517. So this was interesting price action on the weekly. Let's take a look at the monthly. You can see we made this low on the monthly, and look where the monthly bar is closing. Because I don't think corn's going to trade in Globex on Sunday, so I think this is going to be the monthly bar.
Strong bar.
Yep. And because we closed at the high, there's a good chance we're going to get a higher high this next month. So it'll be the reversal bar on a monthly basis could come in.
Hmm.
So overall, corn looks really good. I like this, strong push we saw here, right? We pushed up, made a little pullback, gapped up, made a little pullback, pushed hard. So money's coming into corn. Again, I don't know why. We'll find out why probably in a couple weeks. But it sure looked like they wanted to own it. Anything you want to add here on corn, Barry?
Well, I think you called it out before all this started to happen, and it's starting to look good,
Yeah,
right? It's finally, right?
yeah. Wheat's not quite ready. I think we did make a low. We had a daily false break and it was starting to turn.
Mm,
So, if we can get the follow through next week, it'll definitely be on the thing. From a weekly basis, the thing that made me interested in wheat, I did see an outside reversal 2 weeks ago, outside reversal up, and this week we got an up bar. It just needs to push a little bit more. So
mm,
we're going to let and see how that one develops. But here's another one. This was leading the pack, and now it looks poised to break out because we've cleared the first big hurdle. Remember we were talking about this down in here, Barry, when we had that move up starting, and
hmm
we said, hey, the next big level is 1035. Well, look what it did. It did a gap to the level, full bar push up, and now we had almost a whole week sitting on top of this next bar. This next full square here at 1035.
right.
And this is what you want to see when you're coming out, right? You get that
You
first
bet.
push up, right? You get a
hmm
first big push. Then what does the correction look like? Here it was sideways. We got another push. Here's another little pullback and sideways, and it looks
hmm
like it's ready to go.
Yeah.
And this is on your daily. Here we were seeing, higher lows, right? It was leading the pack. And then of course it does this little false break to mess with everybody with that higher low, right? Little false
hmm
break, and then
hmm
it really goes. So let's watch beans. It's acting very, very well. It's kind of leading the pack in the grains.
hmm
Last couple of weeks, what have we done? We talked about, I didn't cover them last week because I was traveling, but if you remember 3 weeks ago, I talked about this, how we closed right on this downtrend line and that we needed a bar above to sort of escape the downtrend from, the Russian invasion high of Ukraine that we saw. Well, there's your first bar. Here's your second bar. And now we're pushing on this 160, this 1060 level. So once we can clear 1060, we've got the half square cleared and we're ready to go. So it's doing what it needs to do to show me that it's bullish. Let's take a quick look at the monthly. Big thing to notice here this month, we broke the downtrend line,
hmm
closed up here around it's the one eighth, the first 1/8 line. So this month it looks like we're going to get another full bar over 983. I'd love to see us push above these highs because then that's how we can really start trending to that 1275. So all in all, the beans look really good. They've been leading the pack, and I think they'll continue to do so. Anything you want to add on beans?
No, I think you added everything.
Okay.
Good.
All right.
Well, I
Let's
mean, you called the lows, you called the highs. I mean, this is what we're looking for, and I guess we're all waiting to see if we can take out the range, right?
That's it. Absolutely. And once it does, we should really, really get some good juice in there.
hmm
Talk about the star of the show.
Yay.
This one has been so nice, right?
hmm
We traded it short. We had squares. We had false break. We had weekly and monthly support. We had this ABCD down. I hope you can see it. It's a little faint. Once that came in, we said, "Look, good chance we're going to get a big move out of here."
hmm
And look what we got.
Kaboom. Yep.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful trade. Right now we're sort of battling at this half square, which is reasonable, right? Full square here. We had a day pause. We made one bar there, had a pause here, and then took off. This has
hmm
been about 3 or 4 more days because it's late in the move. But we know if we can get over 380, we're heading to 425. If we can't, you know, take your runners off and sit back and smoke a Marlboro. You had a nice trade.
hmm
That's coffee. I'll quickly show the weekly. And you can see why we're at a decision point here. 384 on the weekly is the half square. We closed just under it.
hmm
Again, just level to level, you can see how this thing worked very, very well. And here's the monthly. Big, huge monthly bar.
Yeah.
But I mean, see what happens when you clear?
Hmm.
It's like rocket launch, when you're when you're looking bullishly.
When is coffee?
Yeah, and 403 is obviously very important. It's near those old highs.
Mm,
We're obviously going to print the new bar is going to print well above 343, so we'll watch it and see how it acts in the around the 400 level. But coffee's been pretty good to us, so that's that. Let's go to the last one we have, which is nat gas, and we'll do just a quick little primer here. So when I saw this ABCD that we didn't quite finish, Barry, but look at the action since that low came in.
hmm.
I mean, that's nice price action. Okay, this is what we see when something finishes, right? You get an inside bar up, 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 just boom, 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 right? And that's what has me intrigued about this. We did a little false break here with previous low, and then we couldn't quite make it to the ABC, but that price action there has me interested
Hmm.
to see, okay, if we pull back, can we sit on top of 289, make a higher low, and then set us up for a decent move higher? Let's quickly check the weekly. Here's your weekly. This trend line, by the way, was drawn in months ago,
Yeah.
right? And look
Yep.
where the low came in.
Perfect.
And right
And
on
the
the half
50%.
square.
Hmm.
Yep, right on the 50% of the square. And we got a reversal this week. So again, it's early, but it's time to watch. It's time to
Yep.
watch,
Yep.
pay attention, see what's going on. Let's give you a little monthly look. Monthly, nice little trend line here, closed
Hmm.
up near the highs. Monthly takes a lot more to develop. It's more the daily and the weekly that has my attention here.
Hmm.
So this coming week, let's see. Do we get further strength? Great. If we let's watch the first pullback and see what happens. Can we get a higher low? And can we sit on top of that 282?
Yeah.
And then we may have something to do there.
Hmm.
And that's it for me. I know it's been as we said, an active summer, but we are really, really expecting things to kick up and starting next week. So, cycle-wise, that is. So,
Hmm.
um, rest up, pay attention to the important levels, and just be ready to take action when a market makes a decision at one of those levels, because we do believe that the markets are going to be moving and moving quickly as this sort of summertime light volume is over, and the big boys are back in town. So
Hmm.
good job, Barry. Let's all rest up, enjoy the long Labor Day weekend, and we'll see you all next week.
All right. Thanks, Ben. Good job. And we'll see you guys. We'll see you guys next week.
All right, take
Uh-huh.
care, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.